What can you do in 6 months? What can you do in a season? Why should a chairman take you seriously if you're going to be here for a couple of months? Why should a technical team take you seriously if you're going to be here for a couple of months? Why should the players take you seriously when they know that the countdown clock has started? It's a unicorn player who can adapt to the style of play, loves the fans, loves the pressure, understands the game, can think for themselves on the pitch, can change things single-handedly. Hey, how many of those players exist in real life? In real everyday footballing life that we watch, how many of those players do we truly have? Welcome everybody to another episode of the George Mokoena podcast. My name is George Mokoena, and the first thing that I want to say is Happy New Year. I hope you guys really enjoyed your festive time and came into the year refreshed. We're going to do a lot more things here on this show. The point of this show right now is for me to speak to you about some of the stories I've seen and how I feel about them, and hopefully it can spark some conversations that we can have down there in the comments. So please don't remember to like, share, subscribe. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and do all of those really nice things. Guys, let's get straight into the first topic. Okay, so, hey, what an up and down year it's been in the PSL. So many coaches have been let go of their positions. We've seen Abo Peter Hibala getting taken out. We've seen Abo Coach Mangoba, Abo Coach Rulani. We've seen all types of coaches losing their jobs within this first 6 months, the first half of the season in the PSL. And that has been interesting. One big change that has happened just last week was that Coach Tinkler has been let go at Cape Town City. Coach Tinkler had been with Cape Town City for a number of years. He had been the lead voice of Cape Town City for a while. But what happened, I think, is that Cape Town City became complacent. It became comfortable. It became a team that, you know, does a lot of things well managerially. They've got I believe, the most sponsors in the league. They've got a very good owner in committees. They've got a good structure around that team. But they weren't moving forward. And if you don't move forward, people catch up and people pass you. Think about where the Stellenbosch FC was just years ago when looking at Cape Town City. Think about where Cape Town City was and you know, in relation to the Ajax Cape Towns of the world and all of those things, now Cape Town Spurs. Think about how much wealth of experience lives within that club. But now everybody's caught up. Abu Polokwane have passed them. Abu Stellenbosch have passed them. Now we're seeing more teams moving forward, and they needed a dramatic change. Now, the dramatic change has come in the form of Mushin Ertugral, a very, very well-known, legendary PSL coach, has come back in a technical director role. So he's now the technical director of Cape Town City. He's going to be taking over the team in terms of the coaching up until the end of the season, whereas I believe they will then go and hire somebody else to be the coach, and he can then become the technical director. I love this move. And let me tell you why. One, I think they showed the urgency to go, you know what, guys, we're coming into this thing. We are not moving forward. Maybe now is the time for us to do something dramatic, get rid of Coach Tinkler, bring in a technical director, and move that way. That's number one. Number two, I think it's the thinking of the club in terms of what they want to do. I've said that a lot of South African clubs are built from the bottom up. They're built from the pitch up. That means when the coach comes in, the coach gives you the strategy, the coach gives you the signings or asks for the signings, the coach tells you the starting lineup, he tells you the formations, he tells you what type of football you're going to be playing, which is a very bottom up. You think about a Coach Pitso building the Sundowns structure from him upwards, for example. But now in the modern game, a lot more clubs are moving towards the technical director role, where it goes away from the pitch because there's inherent risks of having everything decided on the pitch. What if the coach gets fired tomorrow? Or what if the coach doesn't bring the results? At what point do we say as the club, hey, we're not going to keep signing players, we're not going to keep doing things that are going to endanger us should the guy who made the signings leave, right? So what if ucoach yangena ufuna tiki-taka? And we sign a bunch of tiki-taka players, it's not working out. Now the club is hamstrung because you have to now continue with that tiki-taka, or if you want to change it, there's a lot of contracts and monies that are still there on the table. So a lot of teams are moving towards the technical director, which is meant to be a more longer term role that's going to align all of the visions and the structures and all of that of the club into one road, right, that is then headed by a person, which means that the coaches that are coming in once that hire has been made are not coaches that are going to have that much of a say as to where the club is going, but they're going to be plug and play. Sorry to interrupt the video that I'm sure you're enjoying, but I just wanted to say thank you for all of the support that you guys have shown me and my Overthinking Football platform. I'm a one-man band that's doing all of this, and I really do enjoy the comments about how, you know, Supersport needs to come fetch me and SABC and all of that stuff. And I think it speaks to the quality of the content, but also the amount of effort that I put in. So I just wanted to say thank you. But the truth is that Abu Supersport and all of those guys, yes, we're competing with them, but it's a completely different place. The sponsors are looking for former players, and to be honest with you, running some of these things is getting so difficult, and things have changed at home. So financially, it's a whole different world. So I wanted to try something new and come to the overthinkers, the people who watch the content, and say it would be incredible if you guys could contribute monthly towards the platform, towards keeping my lights on, but also making sure that all of the crazy things that I want to do, that I want to take Supersport on with, I can actually do. And just for 20 Rand every month, I think that would be an incredible contribution if you can make it. It may sound like a little, but if we can get a lot of people behind it, then we'll be able to carry on doing what I do. I'll be able to carry on giving you the content and also expanding it, because we don't have shows like this, and us content creators need help from our audiences. So I just came here to ask you if you can. Here is the account number that you guys can use in order to contribute. And I think, yeah, I'd be very grateful if you would. But anyway, let's get back to the video. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If we decide that we want tiki-taka at the top and we bring in people, that means that the coach is going to be a tiki-taka coach. That means that even when we sign players, the players that we bring in are for the long term of view of the club, not necessarily for that coach. But because it's a style that he plays, he'll be able to work with these guys that we bring in. It takes the risk away of bringing in coaches, hiring and firing and doing all of that stuff with Abu Coach. So that is where they're moving towards. Another thing is that bringing a technical director also aligns things like your developments, women's teams if you have, your scouts, your transfers. You start looking properly. We'll speak about transfers later, but you start being able to look properly at what you need to go get and what you need to go buy and what you need to bring in and what you need to do this. And the players that we're developing, they go into a pipeline that you start being able to do all of those things. Why I think this is an incredible move for a Cape Town city, and especially because they're bringing in Coach Ertugral, is that Coach Ertugral, number one, knows about Cape Town. He understands Cape Town culture. He understands the club. He understands what's wanted because he's worked with John Comitis before at Ajax Cape Town. He was with Ajax Cape Town 2006, 2009, 2013, and 2017, which means already you have a synergy between management and the technical director. So now the vision of the club, I think even if they were to fight to do whatever, they all have pretty much the same vision, or at least understand what Cape Town football has been. Maybe we go back to seeing a Cape Town that is bringing in players. So many players came through Ajax Cape Town, for example, that were groomed, that were built, that were sold, that were groomed and whatever, through that type of pipeline. Maybe they struggled with keeping the guys, but like I said, well-run team in Cape Town City right now. I believe they've got the most sponsors. So if anybody can take a risk, Cape Town City is one of those teams that can maybe take a risk in terms of keeping guys long-term and maybe maybe spending a lot more than they make for a little bit in order to get a bigger return. But the biggest part that I think I want to focus on right now is that Coach Ertugral for the past 4 years has served as the technical advisor of the Turkish national team. Which means not only does he have the coaching, not only does he have the history with the owner, not only does he have all those things, on top of that, he's done actual technical advising work, which is going to go into, is going to be a big plus in this job that he's going to do. You know, in SA, we struggle so much because the technical directors we bring in, it's either a former coach, and it's a guy who we're hoping is going to be good. Abo Milifintseki, Kevin Johnson in a managerial role. We bring them in like, oh, you guys were so good at development. Come pick up a seat here. But we don't necessarily go out and go fetch the people who've got the experience and the know-how to actually do those jobs, right? The guys that we usually have are not administrators at heart, right? It's people who have been given a chance. So if you look at the teams that do this very well, think about the Orlando Pirates. Uprasten, was a proper technical person, an administrator. You know, so it's good that at least with Cape Town City, they're bringing in people, they're bringing in a person who has done the job for an extended time, 4 years. Yes, it's national team, that's different to club and all of that stuff, but at least you've got somebody who's gone out to see the world. I always say that sometimes you need to go out and do different things in order for you to change. The example I always use is Coach Pitso. I think Coach Pitso's outlook on football changed when he got to Bafana. He was assistant and head coach of Bafana, and I think he started honing different skills, honing different management skills, honing different motivational skills and all of that stuff. And that he could take and bring back to Mamelodi Sundowns when he came in. He was no longer a coach, he was a manager. And I think it's going to be the same with the technical director. And I hope that more teams follow suit. I hope that more teams... Look, it's one of two things. It's either you go all the way in on your coach and you trust them and you found them and you give them the time, the contract, you give them the power to be able to do stuff fully, similar to what happened with the Coach Pitso, who didn't want any technical directors, or you go full in with the technical director idea and you give them the power, the ability, the backing to be able to change a club and really run the club, or be able to lay down the foundation and the structures to make the club something bigger. But you can't do it half and half. You can't lay the responsibility on a coach to now fix all of these things and do the scouting and do all of that stuff if you're not going to give them the power. Now you have a technical director who's just sitting, or you have a technical director who you want to give all the power and all of that stuff, but now coach you to know. That's part of the reason why Mamelodi Sundowns has changed. That's part of the reason why Mamelodi Sundowns had to get rid of Abomangoba, Aborulani, and all of those guys to make sure that when we say Fleming Beck is the guy who holds the future of the club, the structures of the club, the transfers of the club, the monies of the club, when we speak about him, the youth, the academy, we speak about a person who's not going to have that many hurdles to get past. Coach can influence some things, but the bigger running of the club has to come from there. You think about your Florentino Perez's. Right, you think about Edu a little bit at Arsenal. You think about the different people, Cheeky, Bergistan, at Barcelona. You think about those guys and how those clubs are ran, right? So I think this is an incredible move. Now, if it doesn't work out, I want to give credit to Cape Town City for at least trying something and getting out of their comfort zone to do something different. That is the one thing. If it doesn't work, we'll be back here and we'll speak about it. But it is a risk. To change your model, but I like the fact that they've tried to mitigate as much risk as they can. Ertugral knows the club, he knows the owner, he's been with the club, he's been in the province, he's been in the city. He understands the development, he understands all of those things. Now he's also got on top of that technical advisor experience. Great move. And I wish more clubs could take a holistic view and think deeper about those things. We're going to speak now about the second thing I want to go into, which is Kopo. Just to add on to clubs thinking things through. Chippa United announced last week that Kwanele Kopo was being moved on. Well, his contract finished and they tried to renegotiate with him and it didn't work out. He didn't want to come back. He's leaving to go do something different, yada, 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 all of that stuff. But what stood out for me is that it doesn't make sense to give your coach a contract that ends mid-season. And I think it shows a little bit of a lack of trust in the hires that they'd made, in the people they'd brought in. Now, they've announced that Coach Thabo September, who came in with Coach Kwanele Kopo, will be taking over. His assistant is going to be Uma Buti Kanyeza. That's how the club is going to be run going forward. And what's interesting is that this is a Chippa that's sitting number 9, yes. But I think Kwanele Kopo had shown early in the season that they can play. Even last season, end of last season, I remember the Chiefs game where Chippa outplayed the Chiefs. And now you sit with a situation where the club, because they didn't trust him and giving him a proper contract, they have to now scramble to do something different middle of the season. And I think what I want to speak about is the culture of South African football when it comes to coaches and their contracts. Guys, Atazwani and Coach Fusmuzi Vilagazi, their contracts end at the end of the season. That means they've been given 8 months. How many times have we seen coaches that are given a year, that are given up until the end of the season and the contract finishes. Because what that says to me is that, number one, you didn't trust your hire. Ke motho o tshwereng umbrella. Ke motho o tshwereng umbrella who's waiting for your actual hire that's going to come in. So number one, you've come in and you've put a guy there so that you can just, for the next 6 months, not necessarily, you don't even care that much about getting great results. You care more about saying things like, oh, we have hired young South African coaches because we're committed to the development of South African football. What can you do in 6 months? What can you do in a season? You're not going to give them a transfer window because, like I said earlier, imagine giving a coach a transfer window who you know is going to be out of a contract in the next 6 months, in the next 8 months. So they're basically cooking with what you've given them. So there's one. Number two, can you imagine the different stakeholders that understand this? Why should a chairman take you seriously if you're going to be here for a couple of months? Why should a technical team take you seriously if you're going to be here for a couple of months? Why should the players take you seriously when they know that the countdown clock has started? Because another problem with these contracts is that these coaches are not given the backing or even the power to be able to do certain things. And that plays out on the pitch and everybody blames them, they leave. But what really gets to me about these contract situations is you're not going to find a European coach getting given that contract or accepting that contract. Abo Rivero, Abo Hibala, Abo Cardoso, Abo Jose Rivero come into their clubs knowing that I have time to put together my mission. I have time to understand my role. To the point where with Jose Rivero, the technical director was fired. Not to Prasten, I'm forgetting his name, but the technical director was moved on to allow him to execute that vision that I trust you to go and do it. Of course, Nabi, the reason why he's speaking like this right now about players, about asking for this, is because he knows that it's very hard to move him on. The club has to think very hard. But if you look at Abo CM, who has moved along so swiftly after qualifying a team to go into Africa, moved along so swiftly, brought back so swiftly. You look at about 10-10s, how they get moved around a lot. What are you going to build in a year, in 6 months, in 8 months? What are you going to do in that time? Now, there's pros and cons. I'm not going to lie to you, so that we can have a full conversation. There's pros and cons. For the team, a pro is that, like I said, I can move a coach on as quickly as I want. Hey, you're not serving me, I'm moving you on. I'm not tied to giving that coach so much because they're going to be gone anyway, or I'm even planning to move them on. I know most of the clubs have that in their mind already, that they're going to be moving the coaches on. But what are the cons? I think the cons are that, sometimes you need long-term planning. Sometimes you need to do your work, think about it, do your research, find a coach that you're going to keep for 2-3 years. Somebody that's going to be able to shape then your structure, shape your play, shape your players. Somebody that's going to be with some of those players for 2-3 years. That can only be a plus in my eyes. Obviously, you put pressure with some things that they need to do, but that can only be good for a club. Because what's the alternative? Look at Ichipa. Gavin Hunt has been there. Gavin plays different football to Dan Malisela, who plays football to Dane Clate, who plays football different to Morgan Mamila. Now the club is all over the place. The club doesn't have a structure. And we've seen with our owners that they don't care too much about these things. And if you want your club to do well, you have to have a structure. Look at the teams that are doing extremely well. Mamelodi Sundowns up to this year has had the same coaching core since 2012. Yeah, Pitso left, but the guys that were with him were there. You think about Stellenbosch that's doing well. They've had, how long has Clive Barker been there? He's had over 250 games with that team. With his assistant coach, Coach Wesley, with his other assistant who's also DDC head, Coach Van. You look at Orlando Pirates. Yes, Jose Rivero's new, but everybody here knows exactly how Pirates plays. And Uprasten had been that voice for so long that they kept a line. Think about it. How different is Lodge from Mumfukeng? Abo Vincent Pule, how different are they? Abo Tito, how different is Tito from an Opa Manyisa in the role that he plays? For example, we know about the left and right backs bombing forward. Abo Hoto, Nabo Shandu, Nabo Munyane, Nabo Van Rooyen, who are coming in now. They have an identity. And it's easier for these coaches to come in and play versus that identity. Look at what Jose Rivero has been able to do in his 2.5 seasons at Pirates. So these clubs need to start looking that way. When you look at the coaches, a pro, I guess, would be that I get to renegotiate with this team. If I do very well, I may come into this conversation a little bit different. Kopo maybe goes into that situation with the Chipa and says, I want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Chipa says, no, I can't give you that. And he goes, well, my contract is ending anyway. I'm out. But what's a con? A con is that you don't ever get to put your foot down. You don't ever get to control and really be able to work with the players deeply, work with the team deeply, work on your structures and all of that. You're forever jumping around. Think about how much work it is to jump to another club every day. And when you get there, you have to acclimatize to the players, acclimatize to the environment, acclimatize to the structure, acclimatize to the chairman, acclimatize to the what, every single time. It stops you yourself from being able to build an identity that is not built off of struggle, fighting, relegation, fighting every day. A long-term contract allows you also to learn and to grow and to understand. I know I'm going to use this example for the lesson behind it. Not that I agree, but if you look at Hugo Arteta at Arsenal, how many years did it take him for him to be fine and get it? Oh, and in that time you needed to stand by him. And again, it mustn't be devoid of results, but you get to grow and change. But if every day you are when are you going to put your roots down? And I'd like to urge the representatives to really fight for these coaches. Fight, man. It's your client. Look out for your client's well-being. Make sure that they are treated correctly. Make sure that they have a chance to make themselves into something bigger, because long-term wise, that could be very beneficial for agents financially too. To the teams, you have so much trust for these foreign coaches. And I don't want to make it a foreigner conversation about, hey, they do this, they do that. You have so much trust off of the bat, regardless of what they've done in the past, regardless of what they're doing for the club currently. Why don't you extend the same to the coaches that are doing very well? Coach Kopo started the season on fire. He ended that season playing such great football. And maybe he also needed to go through a time where there's a little bit of a dip so that he could learn other things and then take it from there. But you can't keep doing these things, man. A contract that ends in the middle of the season makes no sense to me, honestly speaking. Even if you signed him halfway through last season, surely you make the contract 18 months then. At the very least. So yeah, hopefully the teams get right. A big test for teams getting right is the transfer window. Guys, 1st of January means that the transfer window is now open. And we're going to hear all of the conversations. We're going to hear about quality players. We're going to hear about people who must be sold, who must be brought in. We're going to hear about the changes that must be made here and made there and done here. Hey, we're going to hear about the player. All of us are going to be putting together our fantasy teams. Teams must play a 4-3-3 and you must bring this one and play that striker and play that one and do. Hey, there's a lot of things that are going to happen in this transfer window. But I want to talk more about the process of the transfers. Because I think that is something that we forget about when we get into these conversations. And when I mean the process, I feel like when we speak about the conversations of the people that were signing and not signing and this and that, we're so focused on the price, the stats, we're so focused on those type of things. And rarely do we focus on team fit. Goes back to the conversation I'm having. We've had in this podcast about the coaching changes at different teams and how Cape Town City is doing it. Abo coach, Nabo Chipa United, Abo Kwanele Kopo. It goes into the conversation we need to have now. Because there's a worrying thing that I hear all the time. I'm a Chiefs fan. So I hear all the time, hey, we need quality. Oh, quality players. These guys are not quality. These guys are not up to, they're not Chiefs material. These guys are, hey, that's Yakuluma, man. Then we speak about the players that we want to bring in. This one is going to be quality, that one. But nobody actually speaks about, guys, will this player fit with everything that we need to do? With the club, with the formation, with the coach, will they fit? There's no such thing as quality players. It does not exist. There's no such thing as completely adaptable players. It does not exist. There's players who play in systems that play towards their strengths. That's all. Guys, half of the players that we call great and all of that stuff, look at their histories. Some of them have struggled at different clubs because the club was playing a different type of football. Some of them have struggled at clubs because some clubs don't play towards the strengths of players. Look at what happened with Abotebza. The moment coaching changed, we started asking questions of Mokoena, our star players. We speak about the quality of Sundowns players. Look at what happened and how they struggled. Some might say are still a little bit struggling right now. Guys, this whole football thing boils down to the systems and the structures you create. Do you know why Chiefs doesn't work? Why Chiefs doesn't work is that we sign players on whatever's trending right now. I might date myself here, but guys, remember the old Kaizer Chiefs. I didn't know who David Obua was. I didn't know who Collins Besuma was at the time that he was signed. We didn't know half of those, in fact, most of those players we didn't know. I'd even go and argue that we didn't want some of them when they came. Remember the buy two, get one free things that we used to do go Zimbabwe. Abo Sweswe, Abo Jambo, Abo Nengomasha, Abo Zbam. We didn't know these players. But yet you could trust that the work was being done behind the scenes to make sure that the players fit. Guys, half of the people that Sundowns are signing, they're not signing a name that is already big. They're signing an up-and-coming person who can fit into the club, who can fit into the play. They will become stars. Masebalap. So why do we go into transfer windows thinking that these unicorns of players exist? Again, I'll use Chiefs as an example. It's a unicorn player who can adapt to the style of play, loves the fans, loves the pressure, understands the game, can think for themselves on the pitch, can change things single-handedly. Hey, how many of those players exist in real life? In real everyday footballing life that we watch, how many of those players do we truly have? Because Ronwen doesn't look incredible unless Hulani says, hey man, you're actually really good at playing the ball with your feet. Ronwen, when facing crosses, stutters a little bit. He's not as fluid. But the system is catered for him. Let me tell you about a team that's really good at this, that understands their signings. And not all team will be 100%. That I'm not going to praise them to that degree. But Orlando Pirates, understands exactly what type of players I need here, 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 and here. I understand exactly what's coming into the team. I know what I'm looking for. If you look at the profile of the players they're bringing in, think about Van Rooyen. Is Van Rooyen not very similar to Babunyane, to Libito, to Shandu? Just maybe upgraded in terms of the things that they can do. I mentioned earlier, does Umfukeng not look very similar to a Lodge? Manyesa, very similar to Tito? Striking, I mean, Pirates has had a lot of strikers that weren't out and out strikers like that. But Mabasa and Lipasa look very similar. Mahupa, you could argue, maybe harkens back to Abo Manenze, harkens back to Abo Patela in that way. The way that they play is very similar. Not the same, similar. Year on year on year. So they've got continuity. They know what they're going to go get. When you look at Chiefs, guys, I'll say one thing. Two things, actually. Number one, no more Sundowns signings. No more people who have completed football and who are coming to retire. And again, I'm not saying they're bad players, but their motivations are different. Why they're at Chiefs are different. Why we need them is different. They look great in a system. CBD. Remember CBD? How dominant Castro, Billiat, and Dolly were at Sundowns. We even tried to recreate it at Chiefs. It didn't work out. So no more Sundowns players who are, and it's not even about the player, it's about the motivations. You're coming from a high performance place. You're coming from a place that holds you accountable. You're coming from a place where your money, your salaries come in, got bonus. You have to go win games if you want to make a lot of money. You have to go do things if you want to. Hey, they're coming from a place where you had to go fight with other people, where there's no celebrity there. Now you're walking into a Chiefs and as good as you are, now it's like I'm a number 7 and people still love me. Yo, I've had 4 bad games and there's no one on the bench who can take my spot. Imali yami iyangena, noma sikunumber 9. Those are the things that we need to look at. And you need to go deeper. Number 2, I would love if Chiefs does not sign anyone this season. They need to sit back and think hard. They need to understand what they're doing hard, because this patching that happens over and over and over again is not serving the club. It's not building the club. It's not taking the club to another place. You need to study and learn and research and put together dockets that you've been researching for months and months and months on these players. You need to know what your coach wants to play or what the team wants to play. You know what's funny? I always say that in scouting, you need to, especially for Chiefs, there's a psychological profile that needs to take preference over anything else. I see the play, I see all of that stuff. We speak about the kit being the jersey being heavy, the pressure at Chiefs. So that means when you're scouting, you need to look for people that are also who thrive in pressure, who do well in pressure. That should be one of your key things that you're looking for. I watch a lot of American sports. Everybody here knows. In the NFL, when they're doing the draft, there's something called the draft. The players come from college. They were playing in college in the universities, and then the teams get to pick the best players in order. So they, according to how you finish the season, you get to pick players. So you essentially, the worst teams get a chance to get the best players in, and the best teams get a chance to find some gems. But as part of the process, there is a physical part where they ask you to run and do all of those things, and they put together your stats and they put together all of those things, which makes you look like a player. But then they do another thing. In those times when they're looking at these players, they have interviews with the players, where they sit down with the players and they try figure out what type of person is this guy. They speak to their former coaches. What type of leader is he? What type of player is he? What type of character is he in the locker room? And then they also base a lot off of that. I'll give you an example. If you look at Kaizer Chiefs, the Kaizer Chiefs is very similar to the Dallas Cowboys in the NFL. Dallas Cowboys have not won in a very long time, but they're the biggest media team. So as part of the questions that they ask when they're drafting players and they're bringing players in, is to make sure, those questions that they ask, is to make sure that you can handle the pressure. That I can count on you to say the right thing when things are on fire. I can count on you to be a media darling. I can count on you to not get overwhelmed by the success of the team. So for example, that side, the bigger universities usually have similar crowd sizes. So you can count on those players to at least have they've got experience dealing with crowds. They look at the tape, okay, when things were going wrong, what was the player doing? What was this, what was that? And it's not to say that you're only looking for those guys, but sometimes you have to merge it with the team. So playing for Sundowns is a completely different question than playing for Chiefs in terms of the media, in terms of pressure. The pressure at Sundowns is internal. The noise from the outside does not infiltrate that team. So the pressure you have to worry about is, I'm looking at my coach and I'm looking at the players on the bench and I'm going, okay, I need to perform. There's a high standard here. The pressure at Chiefs is, can you perform when the lights are on and the stadium is full? When you walk off the pitch and your phone is buzzing, notification after notification, when people are swearing at you and can you not let that get to you? And I'll give you an example. Umfundo is an incredible Chiefs player because he seems to love the pressure. He seems to accept it, absorb it. It doesn't make him smaller in the game. He wants to play more. He wants to do more. They feed off of that energy. That's a personality trait that you have to look at. Because on the same token, if you look at Untwari, for example, for all intents and purposes, a very good goalkeeper. But you could tell in the games that, it's a bit too much. Oh, it's so big. Oh, how do I catch this ball now? Oh, how do I do this? He was making so many mistakes that were just simply based off of him not being accustomed to that thing. And when I speak about the personality, it's not just about the loud players and the dribblers. It's also about the leaders. How do you lead a team that is in the limelight? How do you talk to the players that are in the limelight? How do you structure a team in the limelight? The example I always use is Patrice Motsepe, not the flashiest of players. He doesn't even make it into a lot of you guys' top 10 defenders ever lists and things like that. But for Chiefs, he was an incredible captain. Even taking penalties. Biggest penalties, he would step up, put it in. So when we think about transfers, I would love us as a country to think holistically about these things. Just because a player was good at one club doesn't mean they're going to be good at yours. Just because a player was good at one club doesn't mean they're not going to be great at another club, but it's more about how they play and what they do and how they fit. Can you fit into what we want to do? Sometimes the guys that we think are the stars and whatever, there's a guy maybe called Supersport who's quietly doing his job. And you know what Sundowns tends to do? They tend to find those guys. It doesn't have to be a rated 90 player. It doesn't have to be a loud player. It doesn't have to be, hey, like I said, the Chiefs used to bring us people that we did not know. Abo Serge Jua. Abo Patrice Motsepe. Nobody was crying about them. And maybe one of the big reasons, to be fair, is that the internet is a completely different place. We can go research these people like this. But when we speak about transfers and we look at transfers, guys, can we please take into account things that are outside of the stats, the noise, the notoriety? Can you find the gems? And for plenty of teams, Chiefs specifically, I think it's time to stop looking at the top end. You need to start looking at players that can become top end. Players that are gonna understand what Chiefs is and where we want to go and what we want to do in the history of the club and all of that, where you can build on them. But sourcing off-cuts, as great as that off-cut is from Mamelodi Sundowns, as great as that player is, doesn't automatically mean they're going to come in here and do well. Just because a player has been on people's lips for a while doesn't mean they're going to go well. And up to this point, that's what we've been doing. And that's what a lot of teams do. It's very hard work to go and find the next good player. It's very easy to go and find, experienced player, and jiggy, that player's not giving you anything on the pitch. Hopefully our league moves more into that realm, but it's a conversation that I want to have. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. I would love to know exactly what you guys are thinking about the things that I've spoken about today. So feel free to jump into the comments and let me know exactly what you guys feel and think, and where you agree or disagree. Let's open up the conversations and have deeper conversations about all of this stuff. This is why this exists. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe. If you have not followed, please follow. Please press all the buttons so that we can grow our platforms. Thank you so much for the support you guys showed me last year up to the end of 2024. Thank you so much for the love, the support, the comments, the people who came in and told and suggested things I could do better and all of that stuff. It really does mean a lot to me, especially as somebody who's not in football like that. I'm not in football like that. I'm not a former player. I'm not a former coach. I just represent the tons of people that maybe have really good things to say about our football and haven't had the platform to do so. So whether you're watching here, whether you're joining my live show where I speak to everybody, and that is a very interactive show, please support. It really is needed. And 2025 is going to be an incredible year. It's going to be bigger. We're going to do more. We're going to go ham. We're going to fight Abo Supersport, Abo SABC. We're going to go directly at them. But to do that, I need your help. I need your support, as you guys have been giving me. Do it more. Share the videos. Have the conversations in your group. Tatana maklip wetu, nwafagi, nkhulumeni. That's the best way to grow and the best way to support the channel. Guys, it's been incredible. I'll see you on the next one. Happy New Year. Bye, everyone.